How's it going, everybody? I got notes this time, so it should be a little more organized.
That was good, man. That was good. That was good.
All right, guys. So like you said, I've been at JH Ranch in Atlanta, California all summer for the last 3 months. And I'm just going to kind of share with you guys basically what happened and what the Lord did. Because, they say if you share your sorrows with someone, it's cut in half. And if you share with your joy, then it's doubled. So that's what I'm going to do with you guys today. But a lot of people ask me what JH Ranch is. First and foremost, it's a guest ranch, so it's made for experiences in a place as beautiful as Northern California for families to come to. And it's all about relationship. It's not about religion. It's not about being a Christian per se. It's about having a relationship with our Creator and our Savior. So that's the main focus of JH Ranch. So JH Ranch has tons of programs. It has a parent son daughter program, which is like their main focus, which is kind of self-explanatory. A parent and their son or daughter come to JH Ranch and they spend a week together doing a ton of activities like whitewater rafting, riding horses, doing ropes courses. You'd be surprised how many grown men get revealed on those ropes courses way up in the air. They're not big fans of it, but you get to see these relationships get cultivated, and really kids get to see how their parents are religiously, you know what I mean, and see what their faith is like. Then they have Cloud 9, which is for like seriously dating or engaged couples to come to, and they spend a week doing pretty much the same thing. It's just all focused about their relationship. They have Scott River Lodge, which is for married couples to go to. It's not on the ranch, it's off property, but they do a lot of stuff at the ranch. And then the programs that are near and dear to my heart, they have Challenge, which is a middle school program. They have Second Wind, which I got to coach, which is for high school kids. And then they have Track 2, which Track 2 is what you do after Second Wind. It's a lot more like, it's not as focused on building the relationship as it is like cultivating it, making it better. So that being said, all summer I've been a horse wrangler. So that means that 4 days a week during parent son daughter, I get to wake up at 4 a.m. and be at the barn at 4:30 to catch 26 horses and saddle 26 horses and put 26 guests on 26 horses that are not very good horses and see what happens. So it's interesting to say the least. But we would do what's called a Wrangler breakfast ride. So we'd take guests up the mountain at 6:15 in the morning, and we had this big stove top. My parents got to come experience it when they came to visit, but they cook you an omelet and stuff like that. And then we have bacon and biscuits, and it's a really good time. It's really the only time during that program that I get to connect with guests and really talk to people. And then we have a 10:15 ride, which is just kind of a ride up into the mountain. It's kind of boring. You just sort of ride around and come back. But then after that, I was done for the day, and that was a lot of fun. I learned a ton about horses. I got to be a cowboy for a summer. That was pretty cool. But the program that's really near and dear to my heart is Second Wind, like I said. I got chosen as a Second Wind coach, and in that, it was right at the time when my grandfather was about to pass away, and I knew that was happening, and I knew that was what was coming. So, I knew that the Lord, I was really struggling whether or not I wanted to stay and continue to coach or whether I wanted to come home and be with my family. And in that time, I just really knew that the Lord had a plan, the Lord had a purpose, and that he wouldn't bring me all the way to Edna, California, just for my grandfather to pass away for me to come home. So I decided to stay, which was by far one of the hardest decisions I've ever made in my entire life. I stayed in California to coach these guys. And what was crazy was after I made that decision, the next night my guys got there, and we were all talking, and it turns out that 3 of the guys on my team had lost their fathers. So that was kind of like God's way of being like, hey, you did the right thing. These guys needed you. So me and these guys got like super close. And I never in my entire life imagined I would get so close to a bunch of 15-year-old boys. But when you live for 12 days, 24 hours a day with a bunch of 15-year-olds, you kind of get to be a 15-year-old again. So it was a lot of fun. But you know, in second wind, your first week, you stay at the ranch and you kind of do activities around the ranch like rope courses and stuff like that. And then the second week is where God really moves. Now, of course, we have Big Top, which is like a big circus tent. That's where we do all our worship and all our talks and everything. And God definitely works in there, but really in second wind, where he works is in the wilderness and on the river. So before I get into that, I'm going to show you guys this little video real quick. And
these thresholds can't hold me down. Push through the crossroads and I hit the ground. Yeah. No different picture, but a bigger frame. To find my place, I don't need a change. Hey. Don't need a change. And that change is a river to the ends of the earth. It won't battle my bones. It won't rattle my bones. My soul is free on this wide open road. Now I'm bringing it home. Now I'm bringing it home. I was born free, and I'm taking the reins. It's cold. Be my soul, you see. I was born bold.
Okay, we're at the summit. We're about to go on our hike.
I think we can make it there in a pretty decent time. We got good team chemistry. We got a great navigator over there.
I don't think our team's gonna get lost. Maybe once.
I'm confident we're gonna make it to the end, make it to our end point.
Second one, 2018.
I was born bold.
Dude, this view is amazing. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. It really is. Like, God's creation is so amazing up here. It's breathtaking, really. Officially have a half a mile left. Woo! I mean, it's definitely not like a JH meal, but it's a meal.
so that was just kind of a little video to show y'all. There's a much larger video, so they're videoing the entire time you're there. And at the end of Second Wind Track 2 and Challenge, it's literally like an hour-long video that you all sit together and watch right before they leave, and it's really cool to get to look back on everything. But like you saw, we went to the river in the wilderness, and the river trip is a lot about fun and just spending time with each other on a raft, because you really get to know people on a raft where you have to rely on one another. But you know, they have talks every night, and it's really cool because at the river we're at this place called Ferry Point, and it's like this massive just flat space, and there's no trees or anything, and you're just sleeping out under the stars, and it's really cool to see, you know, all the stars, all the shooting stars and everything. And you have talks that night, and so like we have the big top at the ranch, and they call it the big tarp, so they lay out this tarp that we all worship on. It's pretty cool. But the one that is very special to me is the wilderness, and the wilderness, like you saw, the kids are hiking into this meadow called Meeks Meadow, and the purpose behind it is team building. So throughout the week you take map reading classes and compass classes and stuff like that, and you have to harp on them like, hey, when we're in the wilderness, I can't say anything to you. So if you get lost and I have to follow you for 7 hours into the wilderness, I'm going to be mad. So you need to pay attention. And so the point of the wilderness is the first day you all go in as a team, and it's just to really see how your team reacts to adversity, because circumstances don't make or break you, that reveal you. So it just really, you get to see how people and handle difficulty and stuff. But going in to that, the first day is that. The second day, they're starting a 24-hour solo. So basically, they're 24 hours. Their coaches take them out into the wilderness, and you put them by themselves, far away from each other, and they spend 24 hours with just themselves and God and their mind. And that's a really cool. We got to do that during orientation at the beginning of summer, and my 24-hour solo was very interesting, to say the least. But so they know that going in, that they're all terrified of the 24-hour solo, because kids like to talk and like, oh, I'm not going to be able to not talk for 24 hours. I'm like, just talk to yourself. You'll be okay. But so you go in, and on the hike in, the kids don't know this, but the coaches can't say anything. And the coaches are keeping track of strikes, which strikes are every time someone complains, every time someone has an argument, every time somebody gets mad, you keep track of it in your notebook. And so you get to the wilderness, and the first night you cook your meals, and the entire time, the kids don't know this, but all of us coaches are fasting, and we haven't eaten since 8 a.m. the morning we left. So the first night you get there around 6 o'clock, and you cook their dinner, and all of them are like, oh, well, that night they're usually so hungry they don't care if you eat or not, so then they eat. The next morning, you wake up, and you go help them cook their breakfast, and at that point is when they're kind of like, oh, when are you going to eat? And you're like, oh, I ate before y'all woke up, or you lie to them somehow. Anyway, so that takes place. You play some games, you do some activities, and then you have a talk. So Rob Hay St. Clair is this big Australian guy. He's one of the leaders at JH, and he comes hiking in. And he gives this talk called the Grace, Mercy, Justice Talk, and it's by far my favorite talk at JH Ranch. So basically what it is he brings all the kids, and they sit on these rocks, and he says, okay, does anyone here know what justice is? And one of the kids will go, oh, yeah, justice is getting what you deserve. And he's like, yeah, that's right, and he'll talk about that for a second. And then he'll ask if anyone knows what mercy is. One of the kids will be like, oh, yeah, mercy is not getting what you do deserve. And he's like, yeah, that's right. And he'll talk about that some more. And then he'll be like, okay, guys, I want you to break up in your teams and just talk about how you feel like the hike in went. So then you go off and you separate. And in this time, you're making the lunches for their 24-hour solo while you're talking. So they're all making their lunches for that day. They're making their sandwiches. They put them in a bag. And I'm like, all right, guys, just leave your lunches on the tarp. We're going to go back over here. So you go back in your groups, and you talk to them about how they think they did. And then you tell them that you've been keeping track of everything they've done wrong. And usually they're like, oh, we did pretty good on the hike in. You're like, yeah, well, I've been keeping track of everything you did wrong. And their faces change real quick. And they're like, oh. And so then you tell them the amount of strikes you had. So my first team had 253. And my second team had 153. So when they hear that, they're usually like pretty shocked by it. But they don't realize the significance of it yet. So you come back together, and Rob, basically, he's like, all right, guys, so we have a saying here, and it's, I heard and I forgot, I saw and I remembered, and I did and I understood. And y'all are going to understand today. So I'm going to give you a choice. You can choose either justice or mercy. If you choose justice, you give up one piece of food for every single strike that you had on the hike in. If you choose mercy, you get to choose how much food you give up, but you have to give something up. So at that point, the kids are all really mad. They're like, you can't take away our food and all this other stuff. And then I informed them that legally we're only required to feed them once a day, and they've already been fed, and so it's not illegal. And so then I took the team. He says, break up in your teams and come to a consensus with what you want to do. So I walk my team over to where their tarp is and make them all circle up around their lunches, and I make them decide. My first team chose justice, which I was very thankful for, because they said, we feel like if we don't choose justice, we won't learn our lesson if we can still eat. So we need to learn our lesson, so we're not going to eat. And I was like, okay, sounds good to me. And then my second team, a couple weeks later, said something very similar. They're like, we can't, mercy is something that someone has to give to you. Like Jesus gave us mercy, but we can't give ourselves mercy, so we're going to choose justice. And I was like, okay, cool. And so the catch is, if you choose mercy, you have to stand up in front of the whole thing and tell everybody why you felt you deserve mercy and tell them what you're allowing yourself to keep. So you come back together as a group, and both my teams are thinking, we're about to go the next 24 hours without any food. And at that moment, Rob is standing in front of all the kids, and he gets all the coaches to come stand beside him. And he asks, he's like, okay, guys, does anybody here know what grace is? And usually they don't, so he'll let them guess for a little bit. And he'll be like, okay, guys, grace is not getting what you do deserve because somebody else paid the price for you. He said, so I've been thinking I'm going to give you guys grace. I'm going to give you your food back. But the only catch is I can't do that because I didn't pay any price for you. He said, you didn't know this, but these coaches standing to my left and my right haven't been eating for the past 24 hours. If you've been wondering why they haven't been eating with you or what they've been doing, they've been fasting. And if you've wondered why they've been pretty angry lately, it's because they're hungry. But to see the look on those kids' faces when they make the connection that what we did for them is what Jesus Christ did for us on such a greater level is by far the coolest revelation. And it never clicked for me until I got to, in a way, walk out salvation, which was the coolest thing ever. So then after that, they all love you and they're hugging on you, oh, thank you so much. And then you put them out on their solos and they spend 24 hours with themselves and God. But then after that, you leave and the wilderness is over and you come back to the ranch and you have a banquet night. So you just kind of all celebrate what's happened and what the Lord's done. They show you the big video and then you all go on your way. But like I said, I never thought that I would connect with a bunch of 15-year-olds the way that I did. I felt very inadequate when they chose me to coach because seeing all the types of people that are at JH Ranch, because there's so many incredible people, whether it's my roommate David Shoemaker, it was literally just me and him in a cabin for the first 3 weeks because we didn't have any other roommates. And when I say a cabin, I mean a chicken coop that's half the size of this stage, and it's screened in, and there's no insulation, and it's freezing cold at night. So it was just me and him. We had a lot of bonding. Or whether it was Colton Hammond, who was my coach for orientation, who taught me a lot, and I talk to him every day still. Or whether it was the leadership at JH Ranch that actually makes an effort to get to know you and actually makes an effort to show you that they care. JH Ranch is just such a special place to me. God revealed himself in so many different ways, whether it was through because I challenged God going into Second Wind after my grandfather passed away. I was like, God, I'm making the decision to stay here and serve you rather than going home and doing what I really want to do. So I want you to make yourself evident to me in a way that you never have before in my entire life. And he did it 1,000 times over that first session of Second Wind. During one of the talks, they had the coaches come up to the stage, and this one kid that was never taking anything seriously was just sitting there. And I hadn't talked to him all week at the stage, where things get really emotional. So I literally closed my eyes and I was like, God, I know he has something he wants to tell me. So I just pray that you bring the Holy Spirit over him now. And he stands up and comes and talks to me. And when I opened my eyes, he stood up and came and talked to me. Whether it was in that moment or whether it was in the moment when we were doing baptisms in the lake and none of my guys wanted to get baptized because they had been baptized before. And I saw my favorite kid, even though I'm not supposed to have favorites, his name's Billy. I saw him standing over there, and he was really fidgety, and he couldn't sit still. And I knew in his heart that he wanted to be baptized, but he didn't want to be the only guy in our group to get baptized. So I prayed, and I was like, God, if there's anyone in my group that needs you and wants to be baptized, I pray that you'd break away anything holding them back, and I pray that they would get up and do that now. And when I walked over there to talk to Billy, one of my other guys came out of the crowd and was like, hey, I want to get baptized, but I'm wearing sweatpants. I said, it doesn't matter, roll them up, let's get in the water. And got over to Billy, and Billy's like, I think I want to do this. The water looks cold, though. I said, dude, just get in the water. It doesn't matter. I got to be in the lake as two of my guys gave their life to Jesus Christ for the first time, which was an awesome experience. But I just have so much joy and peace about my situation now and life in general. And there's a difference. One of the things they taught us was there's a difference between happiness and joy, in that happiness is circumstantial and joy is just the deep, subtle confidence that God's in control. And I have so much joy going forward. And the Lord just showed me so many things, but really the verse that sums up the summer for me is Proverbs 10:5. And in the Passion Translation of the Bible, that verse is this. It says that knowing the importance of the season that you're in, and a wise son you will be, but a son who sleeps through his day of opportunity is a fool. So that's what this summer was for me, was an opportunity that I didn't fully grasp until halfway through it, how important it was. So, that being said, I would encourage all of you, if you can, it's super expensive, but in some way get involved with JH Ranch because it'll change your life. And it's worth every penny of it. There's going to be an Outback in Mobile for parents and daughters. So no matter how old you are, if you want to take your son or daughter, we had a guy that was 86 and his 52-year-old son doing all the ropes courses together at JH Ranch. So you're never too old, but it's definitely amazing. And if you can't be a part of it, then you can volunteer in it. But it has changed my life and will always hold a special place in my heart. And I just thank y'all for letting me yammer on to y'all this morning. But if you don't mind if I pray for you before I go. Jesus, we love you. I thank you so much for this church, God. I thank you for what the family members I have at this church, God, have done for me in my life. I thank you that they are the reason that I had the passion for you to go to California this summer and become so close to you, Lord. God, I just pray that you would just continue to let this church be a light in this community, God. That you would just let the people here know that they make a difference and that they matter and that what they're doing is so significant to this community that it changes it forever. Lord, I just pray that this church just continues to climb from glory to glory to glory with you. And I just pray that you would guide us and direct us in all that we do as we go forward. It's in your holy name I pray. Amen.